This is Thriving with DBT, a podcast where we learn and practice DBT skills to improve our lives. Today's episode is a one-on-one coaching conversation with Dr. Alicia Smart and a student from TheraHive's 22-week DBT skills program. These sessions create space to slow things down and deepen our understanding of a specific skill with an experienced DBT coach. And they'll also help you integrate the skills into your own life and recognize what real progress actually looks like and feels like in practice. Let's get into today's episode.
Hi, I am Dr. Alicia Smart, co-founder of TheraHive. And if you're just joining us, we are jumping in to week 3 of interpersonal effectiveness with Edward. So thank you again, Edward, for being here. And as always, we will start each episode with a little mindfulness. So if everybody wants to, who's listening, and Edward, please get comfortable. You could close your eyes or lower your gaze. Taking a few deep breaths, noticing the air as it enters in through your lungs and expanding your lungs. Just slow exhale out. Allowing yourself to arrive in this moment. Continuing to breathe deeply and evenly. Focusing on the rise and fall of your chest or the air coming in through your nose. And with each breath, allowing yourself to feel more present in this moment. And then gently turning your attention inward, see if you can identify a feeling that you're having in this moment. Allowing the feeling to surface naturally, and just see if you can observe and name the feeling to yourself. And then offering yourself some validation for what you're feeling in this moment. It's okay to feel, and then naming the emotion that you are feeling. My feelings are valid. Speaking to yourself with some kindness, as if you were talking to a friend. When we can validate ourselves, we affirm our own humanity and validity. And again, then bring your attention back to your breath. Taking a deep breath in. And slow exhale out. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes if they're closed or raise your gaze. And that was just a really quick self-validation mindfulness, since that is one of the topics we will be covering today. So I thought that might be a nice way to start our episode here. We will be covering in week 3 the give skill in interpersonal effectiveness, which is all about relationship effectiveness. And we will talk about validation and then also recovering from invalidation. So those are kind of our main topics for today. And maybe I will give a quick little recap of give for those who aren't familiar with that skill. So the give skill stands for, it is an acronym similar to Dear Man, lots of acronyms in DBT. The G stands for be gentle, right? So being gentle, again, we're not just gentle in our tone, although tone is a part of it, but we can also be gentle in our approach and our body language. I stand for act interest in. So showing genuine interest in the other person and their perspective and what they have to say. V stand for validation, and this one in particular we'll spend a little bit more time on, because validation is basically a way to express that, I hear you, I see you, right? I understand why you're feeling the way you're feeling. Even if you disagree with the content, we can still find ways to validate. We don't always have to agree with another person to validate. And this particular skill is a really good relationship enhancing skill, even when you're not asking for something, just to, feel closer and more present with people. And then the last part of give is the E, and that is for easy manner. So using an easy manner, non-confrontational, non-threatening, maybe a little humor, a smile, can be really useful, particularly if the situation is tense or you're trying to diffuse the situation. But yeah, if we kind of ease things along and we use humor and smiles and warmth, that can allow us to sometimes be more effective in relationships, particularly when the relationship's important to us. So why don't we start with, I'd love to hear what you did for your give and your experience trying to apply give. Yeah, Edward.
Absolutely. For me, a center point of a lot of in these prior episodes have been around communication. A big reason I started DBT was improving and having tool sets or tools really for me when I have interpersonal conversations that are tough or difficult. And for the home practice this week, mine around Give was focusing on a challenging conversation with someone when we've already had agreed upon decisions, and then having that person change their mind the last minute or go back on things. And that has been a very difficult thing in my interpersonal life when I've had a handful of folks in my life, whether in a relationship or friendships, where we have a conversation, we go, all right, we're going to agree, whether it's something as benign as, great, we agreed on somewhere we want to go for dinner, to, hey, we agreed to where we're going to go on vacation. Then all of a sudden, in the 11th hour, I change my mind. When it's something like, hey, I want to change where I want to go for dinner, can it be frustrating? Absolutely, but more benign. But like in this particular example, it's more so there are some life decisions that we were trying to make together that all of a sudden this person is like, I want to add more to this, or I want to change the terms of it. And I'm like, what is going, like, why? This isn't like the first time we've had this conversation. This isn't the second time we've had these conversations. This has been an ongoing month or two long conversation for us to decide things. And it's just been all of a sudden, oh, not that I have more time to think about it. I want to change the terms. I want to change my mind. I want to add things to this. And in the past, before DBT, this would become a very difficult conversation for me to have because I'm like, I get easily frustrated. You can see the problem in my face right now, just recounting this in my mind. I'm like, oh my God, I'm feeling angry right now.
It's disrupting your need for stability and continuity and like knowing what to expect, right? And I think that if we already kind of like to have systems in place and know what's coming, it can be really hard to deal with somebody or other, things getting changed, right? The system being changed, the plan being changed, especially last minute when you don't have time to like reorganize yourself in some way. So understandable anger fit the facts or frustration fit the facts, which is another DBT skill, right? It makes sense that when our goals are blocked, right, or something happens, that we can get frustrated and agitated. And yet, to your point, I think where you're going is sometimes acting on that anger and frustration may not be productive or effective for the conversation.
Absolutely. And for me, especially as we lean to like, how do I apply being gentle? As you could probably tell, I wear my heart on my sleeve. I'm a very emotive person. So when I feel frustrated, you could sense it in my voice. It's like, oh my God, Ed's voice is getting a little louder. Ed's voice is getting a little bit more tense. He's showing it in his face. And so for me, especially for this home exercise, when I approached this now with the give skill, was really focusing on G being gentle, like really trying to lower my tone. Try to speak in a calm voice where I'm not like straining through my teeth. In the past, before being equipped with DBT skills, my gentle voice would be like, yeah, like in this strained, kind of almost comedic, cartoonish way of handling it. And for me, this time around, is being much more conscious of that and much more conscious of my state of mind, much more conscious of how my tone's coming across, even just my pacing, like really just making sure if I'm speaking, it doesn't sound like I'm being strained or being fake in it. Like, and again, a lot of this was also, as I've spoken about in prior episodes, talking about like things like taking a deep breath, Like, and then going into it instead of immediately going from the emotion I may be feeling and immediately trying to leap into the conversation, which may, in my case, may lead to this awkward pause in the conversation. But for me, it became much more constructive. Or even if there's this silence for about a beat or 10 seconds or 15 seconds, it made the conversation a lot more constructive because where I'm coming from is a much more centered place where I am gentle. I am genuinely being gentle as opposed to trying to be gentle, which is something before I learned this skill or had a chance to really practice and apply these skills almost came off as inauthentic or straining when
Right.
I'm trying to be gentle.
I think that's a really important distinction because part of the give skills are about, it is about connecting and, we respond to each other's not just what we're saying, but our emotional body language and tone, right? And part of that, like picking up on people, like, are they faking it or masking, right? And if we're picking up on someone trying to be polite, but for gritted teeth, right? We can feel that. We can feel that tension, right? As opposed to when you relax your nervous system and actually are coming from a truly calm, more regulated place, the other person's responding to that. So it sounds like when you kind of were able to take some deep breath, right? Slow yourself down. It was a little more constructive, right? Like they got less heated. And I'm guessing in the past, what would happen when you came with the fake, I'm trying to be nice, but I'm really annoyed.
Well, they could sense it. Like, definitely, they could sense it. They could sense it. Like, it came off as inauthentic. It
Yeah.
came off as they could sense anger, and it also raises the tension in that conversation
Yeah.
unintentionally. Even if I am trying to genuinely de-escalate, it's hard to feel like you're talking to someone who's de-escalating if their facial expressions like this, and like you could sense the tenseness in the voice. And so, and for me especially, as those close to me point out, Ed, your voice, you talk loud. Like the fact, like anyone who knows me well enough knows, like if my voice is very loud, it's usually because I'm excited. Even if I'm in a happy place, I'm just excited. So whether it's excited good or excited in this case bad, you can sense that. And so part of that is also my voice, my octave becoming lower, and my volume becomes lower. And so like when I'm speaking in a high voice, the other person around me would also try to speak in a high voice. And so like it becomes, even if we're not intentionally trying to yell at each other, it almost becomes yelling at one another. So it's really a case of, hey, if I'm in a calm place and truly calm, hopefully the other person is calm, or at least I'm not the one creating a situation, even if the other person is very intense or very worked up, I'm not contributing and adding to that situation, which in the past I would be. It's kind of like pouring that proverbial gasoline on the fire.
Yeah, right, and then things tend to escalate as you can feel, like, the tension rising, absolutely. So when you were is there something that you noticed in terms of how it sounds like it was more constructive, but were you also noticing, like, by being more present, was there an element of, like, anything change or shift by being just even more present and not because part of being interested and easy manner is also, like, not being in our head so much and overthinking, "What am I gonna say and how am I gonna react?" But, like, being more naturally responding in the moment, and I'm curious if you felt like you were able to do that, and how did that go? Yeah.
Yeah, I think one of the things I noted in my home assignment was also just making eye contact and nodding. You could see this as we do our podcast episodes. The audience probably has noticed I nod a lot, and that's meant to be creating a genuine connection. In the past, definitely before learning these skills, I would not maybe be focused on the person, or I'd already be in my head trying to think of the next argument, or how to counter the argument, or how to. I wouldn't be present. I would almost be like we're talking past one another because I'm so focused on trying to get my point across or trying to win the argument as opposed to genuinely being present in the conversation, genuinely being present and listening, even if what the person's saying to me angers me, even if the person, what they're saying to me, I highly disagree with. I've noticed myself, especially as I've learned to give skill and I'm embracing more DBT skills, has been being present is a very important part of this. Even if I don't agree with someone, if I'm showing a genuine connection, if I'm looking you in the eyes, if I'm just even if I'm not looking you in the eyes, if I'm paying attention and being present in the moment, it's become much more constructive instead of me in my head trying to think of all the other ways I could try to engage in the situation. Just simply waiting and hearing what that person's saying to me and then responding has helped a lot in these kind of tough conversations.
Absolutely. And I think that going back to last week or the episode we had with week two content, which was all about Dear Man and objective effectiveness, getting what you want, right? If we combine these two together, right? Like the using the give skills with Dear Man, particularly when the relationship is maybe rocky and we need to kind of like soften things, or but also when the relationship's important to us, right? So, I mean, if the relationship's important and it matters, these are when the give skills become really useful, because if we are people are more likely to give us what we want also if they feel like you care about me too in this situation and you're interested in my perspective and you're validating me, right? So I think that sometimes forget, we get so focused on being right or objective that actually we forget these skills, these other like softer skills that are actually still important for meeting our objective, but they're also just important in terms of maintaining the relationship.
Yeah, and it's something I'm also just bad about as well. Like when I'm engaging in conversations, especially if it's like I call it an argument. Let's just use that as a hypothetical. I'm so focused on trying to win the arguments in the past. I'm so focused on trying to be right as opposed to just engaging and listening. And I think what DBT and what Third Hive has taught me has really been like you do need to be present in the moment in that conversation. You do need to actually genuinely listen and connect with the person across from you. It's not necessarily about agreeing with the person. It's not necessary that because you're present and engaged doesn't mean you agree or you're accepting the premise. But realistically, it's really important to listen because it creates a bond in that situation, especially for my conversations, that seems like you're genuinely listening and taking engaging with that person as opposed to simply trying to just win an argument or simply trying to just get your point across. And I've realized even that simple just nodding and just being focused and listening and engaging has made conversations a lot easier, even if I am diametrically opposed to what this person is talking to me about.
Yeah. There was one thing, and I'm going to paraphrase it because I don't remember it exactly, but I did notice a comment that I noted in my mind from your home practice, Edward, that I want to highlight because and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you said something to the fact of like, you realized that the person you were talking to was also more thoughtful and engaged when you were more present, right? Like that when you were less present, they maybe weren't responding to you as well, right? Or something like that. Was there something like that in there? You were
Yeah, I think just being able to show that I'm giving them space to share their perspective and that I am giving them that room and space help the conversation become l- less defensive, less tense, less everything, as opposed to in the past it wouldn't be that case. If I didn't show that I didn't show that genuine connection, it almost became more adversarial than it ever needed to be. And it seemed like in some ways, I guess in my definitely my interpersonal relationships, seemed like I was disrespecting them, or if not, just simply not giving them the respect or attention that is required in that conversation. And I didn't realize how much that mattered because again, you don't notice these little things until you learn these skills and you understand all the very various dynamics that go into an interpersonal conversation. That simply just being present, I realized had changed a lot of those. If any skill, just simply being present alone has changed a lot of my dynamics, even if they're positive conversations. It's changed a lot of that dynamic of those conversations and has made them somewhat easier. It's become like that secret sauce to like good conversations, especially tough conversations. Simply being engaging and present alone has changed a lot of those dynamics for me.
I love this point, and this is why I wanted to highlight it because I think it really speaks to the importance of like relational insight in that, sometimes the relationship change not because the other person is changing, but because we are showing up differently, right? And we can't, this is the thing about relationships, we can't actually control other people, unfortunately. No, we have no control over them, but we do have control over how we respond, right? And how we show up. And just by being more present and like interested and validating, it tends to make the other person feel like, maybe I can actually reciprocate that, right? Like it just creates a space where instead of being like, oh, I wish that person was different, it's like, oh, can I show up with a different, like present? Can I be kind? Can I be gentle? Can I be interested? Right. And then also that I'm not saying it could guarantee, but it creates the stage for more of an interpersonal dynamic that's reciprocal, right? Like the way we treat others tends to come back to us in certain ways. And so I just love that. And I just wanted to highlight that to anyone who's listening. And another power of these gift skills is that, we do have influence over the way a conversation is going just by how our tone is changing and the presence that we're bringing. Okay, so maybe we'll move to validation, go more in detail about validation specifically, because validation is such an important relationship skill and it is part of the give skill, but there's also like a whole section on validation in our DBT curriculum specifically. And validation, I think for many people, they get confused that validation means like a compliment or like an agreement or like praise. Like I've had some people be like, well, I don't want to praise her. And I'm like, that's not validation. That's not, or at least that's not how we're defining it in DBT. Validation is basically communicating that, okay, your feelings make sense. Your feelings are valid, right? It's not approval. It's not necessarily agreement. It's just like acknowledging, okay, like, yeah, like it makes sense that you're upset, right? Or I can understand why you're feeling this feeling, right? Or based on your history, I get that you could be having this thought, right? So this is a way we can validate. And it is a really powerful relationship enhancing skill because it allows us to feel seen. It can help us to feel like, okay, I matter, I matter to you. You're actually interested in me, right? And so what are the things that we can validate? Emotion, we can validate, thought or history or difficulties. Um, yeah. And I'm curious for you, like what has this skill been like or helpful? Like, yeah, how are you doing with validating others? And then we'll get to self-validation because I think that's another piece here that's really important.
I think for me, I also have that challenge of validation, definitely before learning give and the DPT skills. I assumed also if I'm validating you, it means I'm somewhat agreeing with you. And I think that is something I struggled a lot with, was that validating someone in their thoughts and feelings doesn't mean, to your point, you're 100% agreeing with them or agreeing with them at all. But all you're doing is acknowledging that they feel a certain way. And I think for me also, it's that kind of, how do I make that genuine? In the past, I might sometimes used to say, and this came off as disingenuous, like, I'm sorry you feel that way. And I know that I have someone in my life who hates when I say that. And when I say that, it's not meant to just to invalidate how they're feeling. But what I wanted to try to acknowledge, and maybe I do need to find better words, was like, I do know you feel this way. While I don't necessarily 100% understand why you feel this way or why you 100% feel a negative reaction to this, I want to almost apologize for, like, I don't want what I've done to make you feel a certain way. I wanted to validate that your feeling is a genuine feeling. Even if I don't agree with it, even if I don't even understand where it's coming from, I do want to acknowledge that you feel that certain way. And I think for me, that's a very difficult thing for me. And I would still say it's a very challenging thing for me to do that because in my back of my mind, in my subconscious, I still think of it as, am I just agreeing with this person? And it really has been hard for me to disassociate the two things. It's just simply knowing that you're feeling sad or you're feeling angry, you're feeling frustrated, or even if you're feeling happy about something and I might not feel happy about it, doesn't mean I'm agreeing with you, but it's just like your feelings are genuine, my feelings are genuine. And I think much like the attentive piece, I think that's unlocked a lot of things for me in helping conversations be better, is because that other person feels like I'm acknowledging who they are and how they're feeling. And it makes conversations a lot easier, or it keeps the conversations calm, productive, respectful, collaborative, as opposed to in the past, I wouldn't acknowledge how they're feeling at all. Or if I didn't agree with their feeling, just simply never acknowledged it. Almost became, Ed, are you just invalidating that person? And I'm like, not intentionally, but absolutely, as I look back on Give in my prior conversations, yes, definitely, I was invalidating that person.
Yeah. Okay. There's so much you said in there that I want to want to come to. Okay, I'm going to start before I jump to one of the things that you said that I do want to get back to. I'm curious for you. Can you remember a time when someone really listened to you and you really felt heard and understood, and how that felt, like in your body? Yeah. Like, what would that experience to feel really heard and understood?
It felt wonderful. And again, just to layer this a little bit, and growing up in my childhood, I grew up in a very traditional Chinese household where I would say, and a lot more seen but not heard, or mom is always right, or parents are always right kind of thought
Yeah.
process. So my feelings or my objections were heard but not listened to. If that made sense. And like, I felt very invalidated as a kid growing up because mom was always right, parents were always right. And the very first time when I had an interpersonal relationship, and I don't even remember if it was an actual relationship or just a friendship, and I had a friend just go, Ed, how are you feeling? And tell me. And I was able just to pour my heart out and just to say it. And that person didn't comment, didn't try to tell me I was right or wrong, but really just I could sense it. They were looking at me, they felt me. I think at the end of it, if I remember correctly, and this was so many years ago, I think they just simply put their hand on my shoulder and go, thank you. Like that alone meant so much to me to go. And again, I this is many, many years ago. I couldn't tell honestly if that person agreed 100% what I said or didn't agree 100% what I said or fully understood what I said in the sense of like associating with my feelings, with my thoughts. But the fact that they just genuinely were present in that moment, listened to me, weren't trying to interrupt me, wasn't trying to interject their own thoughts or their own feelings. All they did was sit there, put their hand on my shoulder, validated my thoughts, and looked me in the eyes. Oh my God, that was just such an amazing moment of like almost like I don't want to oversell it, but it almost like a weight or a euphoric feeling of, and I'm feeling a little bit right now, like, oh my God, like
I mean, that is a beautiful story of like the power of really being seen. And I think that this is why like validation doesn't always have to be reflecting exactly what we hear. It can sometimes just be that really like, I'm hearing you, I see you, you are emotionally safe here. Like I'm not judging you, right? There's a place where like, do I make sense to you? Like on some level, because we are tribal creatures, we are meant to be in tribe and social. I think that part of why validation feels so good is because it is a feeling of acceptance. Like you get me. I'm okay. I'm not being rejected, right? I'm not being thrown out of the tribe. There's a feeling of emotional safety that comes from validation of like, okay, like I make sense to you, right? Even if you don't agree with me, you can understand me, right? And I think that is a powerful feeling when we feel that level of connection, right? Where we're like, oh, it calming to our nervous system. We get out of fight or flight. We go into, our rest and digest. There's a co regulation thing that can happen when we feel validated, which is why actually validation is really good when we're in conflict. Like if you can validate the person who is upset, it can bring, it can diffuse their dysregulation because they no longer have to keep yelling about what they're upset about because you understand them, you hear them, right? So it kind of brings down the intensity. So it is a powerful thing. So one of the going back, and thank you for sharing that. One of the things you said was, "I'm sorry you feel that way." And I think that statement, I want to highlight it because it is a common one that people use. And it can go either way. It can go either way, right? So I think for some people, like if you say it in a genuine, compassionate tone of voice, "Oh, I'm so sorry you feel that way." It could feel really validating. If you say it in a way where, "Oh, I'm sorry you feel that way, but," right? And then you start explaining your side of things, it could come across as minimizing and dismissive, right? I mean, it's all about the delivery, and this is, again goes to why that the skill of, being gentle, and being interested in validating an easy manner kind of all go together, right? Because our tone of voice and our delivery can make all the difference. The same word, same words. "I'm sorry you feel that way." Sorry you feel that way, right? Very different experience. So yeah, I just wanted to highlight that for our listeners who are listening and hearing that and being like, oh, okay, like, again, we need to be watchful of how we're saying it. Yeah.
No, and you make a really good point. This goes back to that gentle piece. Like as I said in the past, I may feel more strained, even if I felt like I was being gentle. Obviously, I wasn't. Obviously, I wasn't being as calm as I thought I was, and I wasn't as cognizant of present. And like, yeah, to your point, like simply saying that now, having these skills comes off way differently, even to the same audience, than it did in the past. Where like, I'm sorry you feel that way. It almost felt like I was attacking them versus like, I'm sorry I feel that way. Where I was like, I'm trying to connect with you and validate the way you're feeling.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So now I'm going to shift our conversation a little bit to recovering from invalidation. So this was another thing that we talked about in our week 3 of our course. Because a lot of people do experience invalidation. And look, we all experience invalidation. Some of us experience a lot of invalidation, and some of us maybe less so. But I think that it's important to learn to self validate because, first of all, the world is not always validating. But the other piece is that if you grew up in a household or if you have a history of being invalidated, one of the things that I've noticed for students is that they invalidate themselves. So it's no longer that the world is invalidating them, but they are invalidating themselves. And that can actually add to our suffering, our pain, and our own dysregulation, right? If I'm having a feeling, let's say I'm sad, and then I tell myself I shouldn't be feeling sad. What's wrong with me? Now I've added shame on top of the sadness, right? So it can add to our emotional suffering if we invalidate ourselves. And so it is important to learn this idea of like, how can I accept the feelings I'm having so that they can be natural waves coming and going, right? That they're valid, like they make sense in some way. I mean, sometimes the emotion makes sense because I didn't sleep or I haven't eaten, right? But sometimes the emotion's happening because, yeah, somebody did something that upset me, or I'm remembering a memory of something that was upsetting, right? So there's cause and effects in the universe, and there's cause and effects in our own body and mind when it comes to emotions. And so figuring out ways to validate ourselves can be really helpful in our own regulation. So yeah, for this one, there was a little home practice on recovering from invalidation. How did you do with this one?
It was actually a great exercise for me because this is actually an area where I think you brought it up, introducing this topic, growing up and feeling invalidated. And again, I want to preface, folks, I'm not trying to bash my mother or say that she wasn't a wonderful, loving person.
Yeah, partly cultural though, right? I
Yeah,
mean,
it's
her parents
yeah.
probably weren't validating either, right?
Yeah, I think culturally, and again, I'm not trying to stereotype or group Chinese culture, Asian culture, but just my experience with it has been like parents are always right. It's the top-down approach, and so there are times where also, especially as a male growing up, I was taught in some ways like you don't feel certain ways, and I think then, as I might have mentioned in prior episodes, I played a lot of sports growing up, so there was that hyper masculinity that came with playing with team sports, like boys don't cry, suck it up. Like I had coaches tell me, like I'm trying not to curse, but get the blank up and just suck it up. Like there was a lot of this stuff growing up and being in an environment where it's like my only feelings I was allowed to have were either super happy, super positive, super everything else. And definitely with Chinese culture, like you don't show the outside how you're feeling no matter what. So almost stoic, stiff upper lip in a way. And so it made it hard when there were feelings of, especially negative feelings of expressing it. And I bottled it up on the inside a lot growing up and it would just explode. And so for the home practice, one of the areas where I feel very invalidated is when I don't feel like I'm being heard. And that tends to happen a lot when I'm having conversations with other people who could benefit from DBT skills, where they're not validating me. They are doing what I used to do in the past. They're already trying to think of the next argument, already thinking ahead, not engaging, not looking. And I've had relationships where I've told partners in the past, like, I don't feel like you're hearing me, and it almost become a broken record in that sense. And that's something that really does bother me because growing up, and again, this is partly a little triggering So I apologize for the audience if I get very emotional, but this is particularly triggering because I felt like growing up, my mother did a lot of that. And I knew it was coming from a place of she just wanted to toughen me up. She wanted me, not that she didn't care or to love me, but her feelings were like, you this doesn't matter. You can be better. This is a small issue. And almost became minimizing. And for me, and when I'm in a relationship with individuals who feel like, Ed, the feeling you're feeling right now is so trivial, minimal. Shut up and suck it up. It becomes so hard for me. And having that conversation, I almost feel like even in cases where I have partners who have been incredibly sympathetic, validating, connecting, I still feel sometimes I'm not heard. And so when I'm in those conversations and in this perspective, especially when someone's dismissing me so quickly, going, oh, it doesn't matter, not a big deal, not a concern. And look, looking from the outside, they might be right. It might be something very trivial in general, but for me, it does matter. And it's something that I want to feel like I'm being heard and listened to and being validated on. Even if it is a trivial matter, it's something that just, yeah, I get so frustrated.
Look, you're speaking to again, like the why invalidation hurts so much is oftentimes because it does activate shame or rejection or a feeling of disconnection or invisibility, right? I mean, it could be, again, like a minor thing they're invalidating, but the reason why it can feel so painful is that internally we can feel like, oh, I don't matter, right? Or I'm not important to you, right? And even though we're not maybe even thinking that logically, like consciously, unconsciously, we could be feeling that. We could be feeling a sense of disconnection, a sense of being dismissed, a sense of being minimized, right? And then that is why it can become so painful. And I think especially when it's coming from a parent and it's like chronic invalidation, it can get really painful. And then we can do it to ourselves, right? But I mean, to your point, I don't think oftentimes parents, when they invalidate, are not meaning to be harmful or hurtful, right? But they could be, they're busy, they're doing their own stuff, but they're distracted. I have so many people like, like parents are on their phone, like the kid trying to get their attention. That can be invalidating. Kid trying to get attention. So just being, mindful of how we can impact each other in that way is important. I do want to make a clarifying thing though about, I know I'm kind of saying, making it sound like invalidation is bad. And obviously we want to work on being more validating to ourselves and others. And I do think there are times when invalidation can be helpful and not harmful if it's something like corrective feedback. So I did want to highlight that for anyone listening, because yes, if we give feedback that invalidating somebody's beliefs or thoughts, but we're doing it in a way to help them expand their worldview or challenge interpretation, or they truly just have the facts wrong and we are trying to correct them. If we do it in a compassionate, like understanding way, it can actually be really useful, right? In terms of being able to grow and learn. But the challenge is like, how do we deliver that feedback if we're going to invalidate, right? So that it can be taken in, which I think it's, again, going to probably those give skills to be effective at giving some feedback in general. But yeah, I think this, so what are the kinds of things, and I know we're coming up on our time, but I'm curious for you with working with this self-validation, are there certain types of things you find yourself invalidating in your own experience that you're now trying to validate?
Yeah, a lot of it's just when I feel like, am I being too like, because in the past I'd be made to feel like, Ed, you're just being childish, you're being immature, you're being whatever the case is. I think in general for me, when I do feel negatively about something, I have in the past, because it was so often being told, don't feel that way, or intentionally or not, it's just for me feeling comfortable about feeling negative. And I think that's been a struggle for me. And I will be honest with you, it's been a struggle for me why I didn't seek health, mental health help, sorry, tongue twister, sooner, or seek, or had such a negative stigma around mental health for a long time, was this self-preservation, like, especially growing up how I grew up, like, by your own bootstraps, suck it up. You could do this yourself. If you're capable and competent, you can do it. And I get where that perspective is coming from. It was meant to be like, be self-sufficient, be like, don't always ask for help, because again, end of the spectrum. You constantly ask for help. You never figure out how to do it on your own. But this over extreme of constantly insisting on doing it on your own creates another situation where I don't know when to ask for help. And I
Yeah.
think for me, that's been a chronic situation for me. And again, as a parent to a 4-year-old son, I overcorrect. I have friends who point at Ed, you're being a helicopter parent, back up. Like, don't let him do things. And I really appreciate you saying things about invalidating. Like, there are times where he is throwing a tantrum. And it is truly, like, I'm not saying he shouldn't be upset, but like, yeah, I don't want to encourage that behavior. He shouldn't throw a tantrum because you didn't get the toy you wanted or I didn't buy you the book you wanted. I do actually have to invalidate that behavior a little bit because that is not appropriate behavior for, oh my God, Papa, you didn't buy me this book. I'm going to throw a massive tantrum. Like,
Right.
yeah, that's not something I need to reinforce whatsoever.
So this is a beautiful example of where you could validate the emotion. Yeah, it's upsetting to not get what you want, and you're not getting the book, and it's not okay to like throw a tantrum, right? Like it's not okay to like have a big outburst, but depending on what he's doing, right? Like, I mean, of course, it's okay to feel his feeling, but can he do it in a way that's like, I don't know what he does when he's tantruming, but like understanding that, yeah, like sometimes it is frustrating, and
Yeah.
like, yeah, setting the limits too, simultaneously, compassionately firm, as we say in parenting.
And so the TLDR for me, it really is like feeling bad. I know that sounds crazy to say that out loud. And I'm feeling like, is that the right thing to say? But yeah, for me, like so much of my life has been surrounded by like, don't feel bad, don't show that emotion, be positive, be happy. I've had relationships where I've had partners kind of say that to me, and I'm like, is there something wrong with me? Am I just chronically depressed? Am I just chronically a sad person? And feeling comfortable with feeling sad. It was such a stigma for me growing up with feeling sad or feeling down or feeling like wrong. Like not wrong. I'm not
Yeah,
finding the right words here, but like
feeling, yeah,
feeling all those ways. Yeah.
yeah, and being feeling sad, like Edward, you are human. You get to feel sad sometimes, like that is like the thing. And I think when we're told, yeah, we're not supposed to feel certain feels, we can almost become afraid of feeling those feelings because, like, oh no, I'm feeling this feeling I'm not supposed to be feeling, right? And then that can also cause us more distress. So yeah, I appreciate you saying that because I'm sure other people can relate to that as well. This has been an amazing conversation. I wish we had more time to continue. But thank you, Edward. So please join us next time for week 4 of interpersonal effectiveness as we continue working through this module.
Thanks for listening to Thriving with DBT. These conversations are here to help you see what practice looks like in real life and to remind you that progress is built on small, imperfect steps over time. If you'd like to learn more about DBT skills programs and coaching, you can find us at therahive.com, and we'd love to hear any feedback you have about this show. Speaking of, if this show was helpful, subscribing and sharing it with someone you care about helps more people discover DBT and these life-changing skills. And if you're feeling particularly generous, a positive review makes the biggest impact for us. Thanks again, and stay tuned for our next episode.